8:30 now, and that means it is time for our high beam. And this morning we're glad to have in with us Alex McCarthy, the director of the Tuscarawas County Homeland Security and EMA, and Jen James, who's the planner for the same organization. That's a long name, but we got through that. So we appreciate both of you two being in here this morning. And severe weather season's still here. I saw some black clouds out there, Alex. Does that worry you when you see that? Or?
Yeah, so first, thanks again for having us back.
Sure.
It's always a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I mean, we're into August where we don't see as much severe weather in Ohio as some of our other months. Obviously, June, May, and July were all very active for us. But even still, we're not out of the woods. Today, we're watching the threat for some severe weather. My big concern as we move through the evening is going to be the possibility for heavy rain. Anybody who's been outside today can probably see it's very hot and very muggy, and it's not even 9 in the morning yet. Mm-hmm. So we'll be kind of watching this as the day goes on.
Does that lend itself to the threat of flash floods, I assume?
Yeah, and when the National Weather Service looks at flash flood potential, what they use is just radar and other products to see how much water vapor, how much moisture is in the air above us. And right now, the air is very, very humid, both here at the surface as well as through the lowest couple miles of the atmosphere. And when you've got this much humidity, you have a higher threat for the possibility of floods.
I know. Now we think about a storm went through. What can the EMA? How can that be helped? Who's going to come and help us out? Planning has to be a big part of what you're trying to do to prevent as much damage and loss as possible. Isn't that it?
Yeah, and in general, when we try to develop plans for events like when we try to develop plans for a potential flood today, a lot of it's identifying resources. So if you look at Kentucky, which I don't think that any flash flooding we get would be on a scale anywhere near Kentucky, but in those extreme flood events, you need to have a really good understanding about what resources are out there, especially to help first responders. So when you have rapid water rises along rivers, you might need to quickly evacuate people. So where can we get additional emergency responders to go help with that? Where do we get boats? Where do we get extra generators or other resources like that might be needed? And a lot of our pre-planning goes into making sure we have agreements in place with other jurisdictions to bring those kinds of resources in.
Helicopters also may be involved sometime?
Well, I mean,
they're hard to find.
Unfortunately, they're hard to find. But again, we do have helicopters identified in our plan in terms of resources that might be needed for various things. And there's partners across the state, both private and public sector, that we know we can turn to if we need to.
Let's turn back to June a little bit. The derecho. I think I'm saying that fairly correctly. I'm not of Spanish origin, but...
Yeah, and, like tornado, derecho is a word that loosely describes a system. It basically means a long-lived storm with incredibly fast winds. Derecho, the name itself just means very fast, straight winds. But in Ohio, you see a derecho about once every 3 years. The one that hit us back in June was a little bit more intense than your typical one that we see. But in order for a storm to be called a derecho, there's a couple things we look for. Number one, it needs to be a very long-lived storm. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, we're looking at a storm that goes over 300 miles. You also need to have consistent wind damage reports. So not just some wind over in Oroville, some wind over in Lorain County, and some wind over here. You need to actually see a long duration of just, better way of putting it, you need to see constant wind damage throughout that 300-mile duration. You also need to see significant wind. Normally in Tuscarawas County, when we have a severe thunderstorm warning, we're looking at maybe 55 to 60-mile-an-hour winds. When we're looking at the damage with the National Weather Service in Tuscarawas County, there were a bunch of areas where winds were well over 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, and that just leads to extreme damage to forests and even structural damage to homes.
There's really not a lot of preparation you can do for that, is there?
No, I mean, the biggest thing for that is just make sure you know a safe area in your home to go in the event of a tornado. Now, we did not have a tornado with the derecho event back in June, but 100-mile-an-hour winds, it doesn't matter if it's spinning or going straight. It's going to damage your home. You want to be in that lowest level of your house or away from windows. The other thing that we advocate is please consider homeowners insurance policies and just make sure that you have all the documentation you need in regards to that homeowner's insurance policy. That way it's good to go in the event you get hit by a storm.
Yeah, which we can. We know that. Jen, you're called a planner. What are you planning for us?
So right now what I've been working on is we're trying to get a good faith-based and community-based group. What I would like to see is, in the event that we were to have any issues with storms or flooding, that we would have a group of people willing to volunteer their time, whether it be with debris management or if they're willing to help with maybe feeding people who were displaced, excuse me, or they can help with donations management. There's a lot of different ways that people can just come together and help, and that's what we're really looking for. It's just to pull in on the community.
So I guess you're kind of taking the larger area because at this time you wouldn't know who is going to be in need, right?
Right. The goal is to eventually have people from all over the county on all sides. For the time being, we're just going to kind of start small, get some feelers out there. Anyone who's interested, we would love for them to reach out to us.
We'll get that number and webpage very shortly because hopefully you're reaching a few more people than a phone call right now. So that's a good thing. Alex, we did have a tornado warning earlier. What was it, this week or late last week?
I believe Monday afternoon.
Yeah, Monday.
So, we were not really expecting severe weather. This is another fun thing about Ohio summer weather. Sometimes storms pop up when you least expect them. But thankfully, we've not heard any reports of damage through our county. But just from watching some news out of Steubenville, somebody posted a video that does show what appears to be a brief spin-up tornado, maybe over in Harrison County. Now, I don't know, in terms of the National Weather Service, there were some more intense tornadoes in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, so they've been out the last couple of days surveying that. I'm not sure if they've actually been able to rule whether a tornado did hit there, but the video itself that was circulating on Facebook seemed pretty ominous. So I haven't heard of any injuries or any significant damage, so I'm glad to hear that. But again, people just have to be vigilant. It's summer in Ohio, and occasionally you can get some pretty rough storms from time to time.
Vigilance. So is that get the insurance, but just awareness? Is that one of the key things that people can have in their toolbox, so to speak?
Yes, and one of the other things that we like to advocate is make sure you know where to get your tornado warnings and your flash flood warnings from. So we have a lot of outdoor warning sirens, a lot of tornado sirens across Tuscarawas County, and if you're outside at a park or outside walking around, it's really easy to hear those sirens. Mm-hmm. If you're inside running a vacuum cleaner or this, that, and the other, you're not necessarily going to hear those. So we always tell people, if there's a tornado warning and you've got good cell service, you're going to get an alert on your phone. And most people in Tuscarawas County just experienced that last week. We also encourage people, look at different National Weather Service, NOAA weather radios out there. Keep those plugged in because they do a good job of having those really annoying tones that can let you know that, hey, we have a potential weather-related problem on the horizon.
We carry those annoying tones, but yeah, they are. It catches your attention right away.
Yeah, and we appreciate our partners at the local radio stations who help us out with getting those alerts to the public.
Yeah, well, thanks. Jen, again, we're looking for people, individuals, groups, faith-based groups seem to, be somebody to reach out to. How can they get a hold of you or say, hey, what's a role that you can do? Phone number, webpage, just any kind of contact information.
So you can call the office. The number is 330-308-6670.
There you go. It was nice and leveled out. All right. But yeah, we take the call, and then maybe you can answer questions at that point, like maybe say how many people you're looking for, what do we need, and you can kind of guide them through that.
Yeah, and anyone, even if they have ideas of something they're willing to contribute, something that I haven't mentioned, I'd love to hear from them.
That's true. Maybe some unique ideas.
Mm-hmm. So those ones are normally rare gems that have quite a lot for us.
Yeah, well, take those for sure. Busy days right now, Alex?
A little less busy than they've been. We're kind of juggling right now, still helping some people out with the storm recovery from back in June, but we also have to worry about some of the other things. Of course, like any other government agency, there's grants and grant deliverables we need to worry about. We also administer the county's hazmat team, and we need to make sure that they've got what they need, training-wise, equipment-wise. So for us, it's always a juggling game just to make sure we're keeping up with everything.
Any training sessions coming up?
Not at this time. About 2 weeks ago, we did host a course at our office on how to mobilize local faith-based and community-based organizations to help with the disaster, which is why we're happy to have Jen with us today to kind of talk about some of her efforts in the office.
Yeah.
But for the next couple months at least, there's probably not going to be as many trainings that we host in our office, but we'll probably get started again back in December with that.
All right. Well, we like having everybody up to date and ready to go just in case. So if there's not anything else, I don't want to leave anything off the table. So again, what's the number for the office if we need to get information?
Yeah, so go ahead and call our main line at 330-308-6670.
You guys, thanks a lot. Brought your own coffee. I mean, who does that? So
People who need caffeine.
that's why I brought my own too. So thanks to Alex McCarthy and Jen James for being with us this morning from the Tuscarawas County Homeland Security and EMA office. Our 8:30 High Beam guests here on the B Team Morning Show.